phrasing?
No, yeah, I purposely, I said what I said.
Earlier today, we're in Brown Town, then we're in Pink Stack, and, whatever it all is. But what's going on, everybody? I am the one, the only, the WOOKIE, joined here by the normal cast of misfits. We have Napoleon Dynamite himself, Dexter.
Hello there.
The mean one, the noble one, Zach.
It's untrue, but thank you. How's it going?
Who we got? Ogre.
Hey, what's going on?
Big Z.
Hey, that's me.
And Cole.
Hello.
All right, more to go over this today, but we're going to first start out with our Unique of the Week, brought to you by our Patreons. Go over, sign up for the Patreon right now. Z I'm sure we'll talk more about that later on, but for right now, brought to you by our Patreon. Patreon.com/Altered Corner. Ogre, take it away.
Hey, okay, so this week I kind of decided, I just went through and looked at some of what we talked about already, and I was feeling a little patriotic. So I wanted to throw any Axiom Unique up, and I will tell you, it was a little bit of a struggle to go through and find one that I thought was like really worth highlighting. So we kind of settled on it's almost an entire class of uniques that you see come through in Axiom, and that's the Anansis that are specifically, we want to look for the ability here. Stats, I'm just gonna skip them, they don't matter because you're here for the ability.
Well, I mean, you want like lower than like 3 from hand and lower than 2 from reserve.
Sure, but like you're playing Axiom, so
yeah,
probably that's just a thing that you're doing with all your cards anyways. This Anansi that we picked, and we debated. We actually looked at 2 before we decided on this one, and this was thanks to Dexter pulling it. Thank you, sir. The thing that we want to highlight here is that he has an arrow ability on this one that says you may put a card from your hand in reserve. First clause. That, before we even get to the bottom half of that, you're playing Axiom, you're turning on your Frankensteins, you're turning on your Tinkerbells, you're making your Amelia Earhart an unfairly costed card, you're turning on all of your like draw and resupply tools. Like, that's good. We've covered that before. That's standard good stuff for Axiom. But then it says if you do put that card from your hand into reserve, I gain a boost for each card in each player's reserve, which is different than the base card in that normally it's just the cards that are in your reserve, right? So you have the opportunity to kind of stack your reserve up, use things like Axiom Reprocessor and whatever else to dump cards in there. Maybe you're playing Subosh and you put one in at the start of your turn. Like you could pretty easily get an Axiom reserve stack up to like 4 or 5, which is, I think, pretty much what you can do in Lyra as well. Like, I don't think I typically see that many more cards in that, even in a Fen deck. But then if you think about that, like, let's say you stack your reserve up to 2 or 3 cards. If you're playing it at the right time, your opponent's got 2 or 3 cards in their reserve. That means that you're getting 6 boosts just for playing the card, right? Like, stat-wise, you would have to be costed pretty terribly for that not to be good. And in this case, I know I said the stats didn't matter, but the one that we're looking at is a 3/2 cost and then has 3/1/1 for stats. So you're almost always, there are so few situations where this card is not going to bring more stats than it costs you to play it. And at the very end, there is also a from reserve ability that is you may put a card from your hand in reserve. Which in this case, you can order for those that don't know, it doesn't matter the order that triggers are printed on a card. You always, as the active player, choose the order that you resolve them. So in this case, you would first, when playing him from reserve, choose to resolve his from reserve trigger, put a card from your hand into reserve. Then you hit his arrow, you put another card from your hand into reserve, and then you play Anansi. So to do the math on this, like, Anansi has to be in your reserve for you to use this ability. So effectively what you're doing is you're replacing him with the card from your hand so that you don't go -1 on your stats. But that could still make the difference, right?
Yeah, I
So
mean that's still playing a 7/5/5, assuming you don't even have your havens. So
yeah, that's
for
just
two.
that's without any other support.
For two.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. You're not like that's beyond Bravos numbers. It's beyond any numbers that you're going to get just from one card. You don't have to meet any special conditions for that to happen, and that's like not counting whatever their reserve is. Like that's minimum is going to be 7/5/5 in that scenario, which is not a hard to achieve scenario.
At all.
So,
There are some weaknesses that you're contending with here that you're not contending with in some of the other places. Unlike in Bravos, unlike in Muna, you don't really have a ready way to apply tough. You are sitting on a 3-hand cost body, so you're susceptible to
Off you
almost
go.
all of the removal. You're
Yeah.
a super cheap teamwork. You're a Kellen burst. Is intimidation 2 or is it 3?
Intimidation is 4 or 5 or less.
Okay, yeah. So intimidation hits you. I mean, just all of it. Everything can hit you. And unlike with some other like cheap big body cards that you might try to play, this one requires coordination over the course of an entire turn, right? Because you want your reserve stacked to play this card to get maximum value. So
Yeah.
normally when you're playing a low cost big body, you want to delay it until the back half of your turn as much as possible. Here, unless you just have a really fat hand, you kind of can't do that.
Yeah.
You have to play it up front to get maximum value, which means you're more susceptible to those things that already are hitting you. So
I mean, if you're running hooked rare and you're going second like that, that's something. You
yeah,
can play that,
play
replace
your
the
hook,
card
and then play
itself.
this.
Yeah.
There's don't get me wrong, and there's I've seen some things like I have a reserve stacking deck. It's not good, it's just a meme, but it's fun. And you can do things like what's that? It's mechanical something. It's 1/2 costed, and the text on it is that you use an arrow ability on one of your permanents.
Yeah, it's mechanical
Mechanical
training.
training. So
Yeah.
you're playing brown, so you're running havens. You play your mechanical training. It goes to reserve. You target your haven, add another card to your reserve,
Mm.
and then you play your Anansi, and you're now 2 up for. It's basically like spending 1 mana for two boosts before you play it, but
Yeah.
it also gives you net the 0.5 card draw in there for getting the resupply in. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it is a game-winning strategy that you're going to be able to take into your local meta, but it is very fun to play.
Let's say it's fun though.
And I do think that there is a world coming up in the next set, maybe the sets beyond, where that sort of, because we've seen this sub-theme, right? Like we've seen Anansi, there's a few other cards that have abilities that care about the depth of your reserve. I think that'll be an archetype that you can kind of play with in the future. So cards like these, if you're collecting brown uniques, might be something that right now is kind of a meme build that's fun, but in the future, maybe they're competitive.
I still think this is a pretty competitive card right now. This is
I'd
a good
run
card.
it. Yeah, if I had
Yeah,
it,
for
I'd
sure.
run it.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean,
in the
like-
future too, we could see like more heroes that have bigger reserve zones, so these cards get even better.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, just by default. That's something we haven't really spent much time talking about. But if
Mhm.
you see somebody that has a native 3,
Or it also doesn't have to be a hero to do that, right? Like you're talking about brown, so like I don't see anything. Like I think a completely legitimate brown landmark could be a landmark that just increases your reserve and your landmark zone by 1. That's all the landmark would do. And I think that would be a completely legitimate, viable landmark for brown. That's
Yeah,
what they need.
it starts to flesh out some strategies that, because right now, like when you're playing brown competitively, you're probably playing turbo. I've seen some Subash decks that are pretty good, that are kind of getting out that direction. But for the most part, like we're kind of locked in on one archetype right now.
Yeah.
If you're playing turbo or Subash, you're running almost the same set of cards. There's just like a robot suite that you sub in for Subash that you don't have for turbo. But cards like that could open up some additional archetypes for us to start kind of playing and testing out new things that would be really cool.
Yeah, and that same landmark could like out of faction over to Lyra because they do that reserve thing too. So like I think that's a slot in the game design that definitely needs to be explored. To like if we know the new heroes aren't going to be out for a while, they could definitely still increase our reserve and our landmarks through actual cards.
And we've seen gear now as well, right? So you could have an
maybe
expedition
a gear
permanent
could do that. Yeah, that would be
it
cool.
gives you that temporary additional reserve and or landmark slot. But then as soon as you advance in that lane, it
You
goes
lose
to
it,
reserve, so you lose that slot. But that's
I
still
think
a
there's
cool design space.
Yeah, I think that's something that they could do without necessarily going into the hero mark, because we know it's gonna be a while till we get heroes that are new, and so there's still a lot of things they can do with all of the elements of the game with just landmarks. Because they really have not done that much with landmarks. I was expecting more. Like, I honestly hoped there would be uniques for all cards, right? Like, it would have been fun to have unique spells and and like Brown needs unique landmarks, like real bad.
And who
Like,
knows? Maybe that will be something that comes down the line. I think they kind of were a little bit scared of it, honestly, because like permanents are a little bit different than a regular card where you can only expect to see, that one tug of war and then it's hit in reserve, and maybe you play it again, maybe it gets sabotaged, whatever. A permanent's kind of there until it gets removed.
Until you hit Cloth
Robin
Cocoon,
Hood. Let's say Robin Hood's
Cloth
kind of
Cocoon,
there
that's true.
too.
which I think everyone has access. Well, who has access? Lyra has access to Cloth Cocoon. Who else?
And Muna.
That's Muna. That's it.
Yeah,
There's
it's
no
just
other
Muna and
permanent
Lyra.
removable besides Cloth Cocoon.
No,
There's gotta
so
be.
all
There
of
is.
There's just none that is as good. That's
Oh.
Yeah.
Cloth Cocoon is just the best. Sticky
rest
Note
of us-
is good.
Yeah, sticky notes. So the rest of us deal with, you've got 4 and under, and then you've got 4 and up is the split. And right now, all the permanents that most people care about removing are 4 and under, but we're starting to see some of the like larger ones terrorize our friend Cole. So maybe we'll see more like large permanent hate in the future, but Cloth Cocoon doesn't have to pick, which is, I think, where a lot of its like power and flex comes from.
Speaking of that, did you ever finish those 10 games in one day?
I no, because I got knocked out in round 1 of the tournament. So I got 6 in.
And you didn't go up against one single Kesha during that time?
Nope.
Because there's not a separation based on like elo, right? So it just makes no sense how we have wildly different matchups all the time.
I have a giant blue shaped or colored target on my back where it's like if I log in, they're going to throw every blue that they can find in the pool at me. I don't know how they flag it. Probably it's something just like in the metadata from my Board Game Arena account. Like this guy loves to play into Ortis.
Yeah, I set your settings that way. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I have gone against that Akesha deck and slightly won a Faunus 4 times this week alone.
I rarely see. I see a Faunus. I don't see a Kesha that much.
And there were
I've seen Akesha, but never the Bastion build, so I don't know why you're running into that one so much.
I don't know. There were
Cole,
2 in
Cole has that
AWOL.
same setting, but his isn't set to Ortis. It's set to Catagear.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later, but yeah.
I think you have to click. It's the difficulty.
It's creeping
setting.
up on Cole. That's the only person. That's
you gotta turn down your difficulty setting. Is what it is. You gotta go from hard to easy.
I wish.
Alrighty, let's move into our next segment. Why I Suck at Altered. Brought to you by Carl's Jr.
Oh my god.
Dexter, tell us why you suck at Altered today.
Yeah, so, I mean, I do have a limited collection. Like, I don't have all the rares yet, and I don't have any great uniques, but I've been putting some uniques into my decks that are definitely subpar, and putting those uniques into decks that are probably better than commons, but worse than rares are fine, and it makes sense for the deck construction. But in actual, like, gameplay, a lot of times I just keep them in my hand and like play them every time, and it does not make sense to do that a lot of the times, and I should just throw it away in the resource if I have better cards to play or other things that are more useful. So just like knowing that uniques can be good, but sometimes you just have to get rid of them if they're not what you need in the moment is very important.
I have to like 100% second this, because I have a couple decks that have really good uniques. But, like, sometimes when you draw your 2 cards, given the game state, like, you have to put them in your mana. Because if you hold on to them, like, you have a dead turn. And then, like, mid-game, which is basically, like, turns 4 through 6. Like, you cannot get double pushed mid-game in a lot of decks unless you're Waru and afford to win. So, like, sometimes you have to get rid of those shiny gold cards to, not get wrecked. Which is hard.
Well, when we were watching was it Ace or was it AWOL last week, where you thought that Pluka had ditched his Super Quets when it really got sabotaged, but you had made the point, like, he couldn't even play that at this point because of the cost, right? He was going to get double push. So, like, case in point, like, we almost saw it live, except for that he actually did get it sabotaged rather than have to mana-size it. So.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tempting, right? It's hard because, like, you use your cool, like, card that nobody else can have. So when you see it in your hand, I don't know. I feel that same pull. Like, I don't want to just throw this in mana.
It's
and then
really
never see it
hard.
again.
Like, I know I've done exactly what we talked about sucking it altered about. Like, I've held on to a card. Like, Dexter brought up this is a potential topic, and it was like literally the day before he mentioned it, I held on to, I think it was my unique Orda Spy and the Siggy deck I've been running reps on. And I was like looking at my starting hand. There was clearly a better route that would have been more effective to start the game with. But I kept the Orda Spy, which was going to do nothing for me, given I was playing against Muna, who was going to anchor their dudes the first 2 rounds anyway, until like turn 4 or 5. So I was just holding it. Which I eventually did play it, and it did get it sabotaged, because my unique sabotages when they go to reserve, so they don't get a chance to save it. Kind of like a Legate, which is why I like it a lot. But in the end, I lost that game like by 1 zone. We were like 1 zone to 1 zone, and had I had like the extra zone that I could have potentially got by having a different setup on my turn 2 or 3, I could have won the game. And I lost because I held on to the shiny card. I just really wanted to keep it.
Well,
It's
it's
not
tough.
the right call.
It's tough to do, right? It is.
Yeah,
It's
hard.
extraordinarily
It's real
tough
hard.
to do.
That's the whole point. Like, you just have to do it sometimes.
Well,
Yeah.
right.
Because, like,
and
you want to make it work, right? You're going to try to force it, or you hold it, and you're going to be like, I'm going to make this work.
you're
and
only
you make
allotted
something.
3, right? And
Yep.
Yep,
not
max 3.
only in this game, but in other games, we're taught our rares or our expensive or extremely dollar-wise valuable cards have so much power. And in this game, sometimes they do, but then sometimes they don't. Like, it's... Uniques in this game are extraordinarily weird. Like, there are... And it's just the fact that there's bad uniques is such a, like... I don't want to say characteristics, but it's such an odd thing, right? Because these are supposed to be, like, your money cards, right? Like, you go to Magic and, like, you have your rares, and a lot of them are your money cards, and then you go to, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! And the big shiny ones are your money cards. All over every card game, the big shiny ones, the search cards, the ones you're chasing after, are always your money cards, and it just feels like absolute dog water putting it away and knowing you're never going to see it again for the rest of the game, even though you have a better line to take.
It's so true.
It's
Right,
so
it just
hard.
is.
Like at the end of that game, I was like, I totally lost this game because of my 6 cards. Like, I made a bad choice there, and I know why I made the bad choice. Because I didn't want to mana at the start of the game one of the 3 unique cards in my deck.
Yeah, I feel like I have the perfect example here in my Muna deck, and I pasted it in the sheet so you can see. It's my unique Son of Yggdrasil.
Yep.
And it's by far like top 4 of my Muna uniques. But it's such a hard card to make a decision on. And
especially with Muna, we just talked about how card starved you are in Muna.
Yep.
So, like, if you hold on to the 6-cost Son of Yggdrasil in your starting 6, you are effectively playing the majority of your game starting at 2 cards. And that's
and
not
you guys,
good.
And Green doesn't have as many ways to dump cards directly into reserve, right? So it's not like you're able to sort of foist this guy into your reserve where you can then pay him for the 4 costs.
Yeah, use a 6 from hand, 4 from reserve, and even then, like, that's also a really bad thing to do with Muna, because what we talked about last week, like you don't have access to a lot of cards. unless you go the route where you draw and your opponent draws, and that is also just bad. So like it's just really, really hard to do that kind of thing with like the hold on them. So yeah, like if I draw Son of Yggdrasil, my starting 6, unless I also have Tiny Jin, like he's got to go to mana for me, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, and when you're playing Muna, as you talked about last week, you have a lot of things you're up against that can just tear you apart. So if I have this in my hand and I have 2 cloth cocoons, but I'm against like a Waru or somebody, I have to keep the 2 cloth cocoons. Like,
100%. Yeah.
it's just yeah. So like this unique's just gonna go straight to mana and never be seen again.
Mm-hmm. Quite often, it's just a really bad starting 6, and that's I mean that's something we could probably have a discussion about all of itself one day. Is like, is it worth going high mana for these uniques, knowing that if you draw them in your starting 6, they're probably having to be mana'd? That could be an interesting discussion, but not today.
Of choices. That's all this game's about.
For our
Right?
deck construction today, what are we talking about, Z?
All right, so I actually wanted to talk about like control, whether that means sabotage or destruction, and I started to like make a concept around that to talk about today. And then in that process, I was like, well, I can't really do this until I talk about card draw, because a lot of the decisions I'm making and how I'm building decks in regards to the number of control cards I'm putting in my decks has to do with how many cards I'm drawing in general. So that is what we're going to break down as far as like things to be aware of when you're constructing decks. So we're just going to talk about. I'm going to keep the math behind this like relatively in simple terms, as far as like there's not going to be a whole lot of like nitty gritty of the stats here, but it's just going to give a general idea of what we're talking about with like a low versus a high draw deck. And draw is a weird term in Altered altogether, because in most games, like efficiency is referred to just I'm drawing a card that's a new card available to me. Things that help efficiency in Altered are also stuff that like remove fleeting, or technically anchored kind of helps with like the amount of like stuff on the board over time. There's a lot of things that just kind of help your cycle that aren't necessarily drawing a new card. But today I'm going to basically focus more on the actual draw part. So like most games end at around the 9 mana range. So you're roughly looking at 7 rounds. You're starting with 3. You get 6 more. That's your 7th round, 7 or 8 rounds. So I'm generally going to talk about like a 7-round game being the close of the average game after you play a bunch of games. This is generally where it goes. Yes, there are decks that extend this call before you say something about that one deck. And
or anytime Dexter plays.
and if you're playing Turbo, you're either going to beat them or lose to them really fast. They don't really have another mode or way to play. But most in general games are going to go about 7 rounds, that 9 or 10 mana round, which means you're going to see a certain amount of cards in all of those games. So you're going to start off with the 6 cards you get from the very beginning. So you see those immediately, and then you're going to see 12 more cards over like those 7 more rounds. So that's 18 cards without doing anything, right? Because you're going to draw 2 cards every round, except for one hero. That's a little weird. So you have those. Yes, you're going to mana one of them, but you still see them out of the whole deck. So you're going to see that amount of cards, and then there are certain cards that you're going to put in the deck that will help that cycle. So you're going to want to. We've talked about 2 different deck constructions, and there are certain cards that just when you put in there, they're either drawing themselves or they're resupplying. So you're getting to see more cards with those decks. Now, most decks are going to try to want to run as many of those as possible, so that you just have access to more cards, because more cards means more options. Whether that's just playing a 1 mana drop to see what they do to respond, or to answer their cards. Or just to get to that card that is your win con anyway. And so this allows you to see a little bit more cards because you're adding cards that draw. So in So most decks generally have 3 to 6 of those that they're going to add. So, which means because they do help you draw a relatively like normal, mundane, low draw deck, you're seeing roughly 20 to 22 cards of your whole deck by the end of the game. So I'm calling those the low draw decks because I'm just break this into a binary situation. Because then you have high draw decks, which just basically Izmir, Ortis, Fen, and Turbo. Like those are our high draw range of stuff. And they generally see anywhere from 24 to 28, potentially 30 cards in that time frame. And because they're just having access to more cards with the way they work. So there are just certain cards that will allow you to see more cards. And right now, out of the meta that we play in, from all of the games we track, other than Cole, who only seems to run into a certain color, I have the significant decks that are in the low draw range. Like they're just going to see less cards. This doesn't mean they suck. They're still actually very competitive. But our low draw decks that you see out there are Tasia, Kojo, and Siggy. You're looking at decks that see 28 or less cards by the end of their games. Our high draw decks are Waru, Fen, Trest, and any Izmir deck. And they typically are going to see 30 plus cards by the end of their games based on just the way they play and the cards that they have available to them. So before I get into like some of the big cards to look for to make sure that you're continuing to draw cards, because a lot of the stuff we talk about in the future as far as constructing a deck is going to assume that you have a certain amount of draw available to you. What are y'all's thoughts on how much of the cards you're seeing in those games that y'all played? Nothing.
Nothing.
I think we all waited for someone else to talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead real quick. So your low draw number was a little surprising to me because like there are a lot of games to where I still have.
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. You mean to tell me that the blue player heard the low draw number and was surprised?
I was. It was shocking. No, like seriously, the number of cards that on a bad draw that I have with Waru, like I'll still have 20-ish, maybe 15. 15's low. I would still say 20-ish cards left in my deck. And granted, that's still 19 that I'm drawing, but like you said the numbers wasn't 20 for a low draw deck.
Yeah.
Like that is shocking to me. Like granted, I haven't played as many games as you, but like that feels like a high number. But like I know that it's there, right? Because you're drawing 2 per turn. So
it's roughly 20 is in game, like the end of the game.
Yeah, I need to keep track of that playing Tasia so much. How much is really left?
And in Tasia, like Tasia is the lowest of the low. I'm about to talk about that because like Tasia is the one that has to consider Anchor to be their form of efficiency because they have to do that. Kojo made the way I made it maximizes the amount of draw it can possibly get. But Tasia doesn't even have those choices.
Yeah. And it's Bravos, right? So even like if you maximize, if you take just every card in Bravos that will let you draw a card, even if you take the facsimile draws, like I'm not actually drawing, I'm just ramping, and then I'm choosing not to use it as a ramp, but to hold my 2 on the next turn, you are still like the fake draws that you get from ramping aren't really going to. That's not fair. It is a card that you're going to get to keep in hand that you wouldn't have otherwise, but you're not accelerating the speed that you see different options.
Yeah, you're not seeing more cards.
Yeah, you were going to see it anyways. It just makes it available to you.
Yeah.
Whereas, we see some of these, like some of the crazy blue uniques that let you just power through your deck, and then these guys have hands like. In this game, when I see a player that has 5 or 6 cards, I think, God, they're doing good. But then you see people and they've got like a fan of 9 cards, and you wonder, okay, hold on, something broke over there.
For sure.
I think even on Trace, and it's one of the things that kind of tells me if I'm having a good Trace game or a bad Trace game. If so, they'll target, if you're playing Turbo, the other player is going to try to burn your Havens. That's a given. But next, when your Adas and your Salvager is the resupply, right?
Yep.
When those
Salvager.
cards are in the reserve, they're going to kill them. It doesn't matter if it gives you a counter, they're going to kill them. And getting them hit, particularly by cards like Legate that don't give you the counter for them. We've talked about this a million times, but
Legate's devastating.
Slowing that card draw, because that's all you have is Turbo, is the speed at which you move through your deck and you filter through to get your little 1-cost cards in your head. Because like in my Turbo, when it's running, I'm trying to get through my deck super fast so that I can see my 3 copies of Haven, and so that I can get 2 of them stuck on the board, and then have, like, if I'm having a great game, I get that one turn where I sort of overload my permanents. I play the 3rd Haven down, and I get to just cook for one turn, right?
Yeah. That's a fun turn. That's a real fun turn.
When I don't get that draw, I am completely dead in the water, because like I need to see those additional options, because I am trying to filter to my power cards, and not every deck's built that way. Like you can just put a bunch of value cards in a deck and have it work really well. But on a Turbo is sort of a weird deck in that I think it's a combo deck. It's just that the combo is all baked into having one card. You really need your Havens.
This is true. You really need the card.
Yeah, you have to have it, and you really also want to have your ability online, and then you're playing the game, right? So I've never thought to count like how many cards are left in my deck at the end of a game, but I can tell you that at the end of a good game, there's not many left.
Look over at the number in BGA. It's right there.
Yeah.
So just pay attention.
You have to do it.
But I mean, basically, what this comes down, like when we have the 3 low card draw decks from the competitive cycle, and that's actually another reason why so many heroes are not competitive. Like almost all of the heroes I never talk about are not just in low tier; they're in low tier with less options to do things with, because their card value's not like their hero's actual ability doesn't hang with the other heroes. So like those low tier decks, Tasia, Kojo, and Siggy, that are good. Those are all good decks. Only see about 50% of their cards a game. The high tier, like the high draw decks, which is the Waro purple, all purple, Fen and Trest, like they're seeing 70% of their deck, which means like a lot of us don't have three fire uniques. Like I don't have 3 fire uniques in any deck I run, but like if I have 3 fire uniques, if I've been that blessed to open them or spent that amount of money, right? If I have a 70% chance to see, like if I'm seeing 70% of my deck per game, that just means the uniques in those decks have quite a bit more value than uniques in the low decks. Because like if I'm only seeing 50% of my cards per game, I'm seeing those uniques way less often, no matter how impactful they are, right?
Well, with Finn, it's a bit weird because I mean, you're not seeing half of the cards you're drawing because it goes straight into mana.
Part doesn't matter as far as the math of seeing 70%.
I think you're missing the crucial point, right? Card draw is important in any game you play, and it's mainly due to the more cards you see, the more answers you're able to find.
Yeah.
Right? You have answers into your deck. Any meta-relevant deck has answers to the other meta-relevant decks. However, if you are seeing less cards, you have less opportunity to find the answers, and you're praying more to the RNG gods to help you than you are in a deck that's able to see a lot of cards. Ordis, Waru especially, sees buckets of cards. Many
cards.
And I think, Z, maybe you can break down the math. I doubt you did this math, but I would bet you that Waru probably sees the most cards in the game. Like, of all the heroes, he is able to see more cards than any other hero.
Izmir can still see the most.
I don't think so. Izmir is probably more.
Izmir has more cards to resupply and draw simultaneously.
Well, if you're
than Waru.
saying hero, because Wookiee's specifically saying hero.
Yeah.
I
Turbo,
think that is
I wanted
correct.
to put Turbo in contention, but the thing about Turbo is that like it's not quite as consistent because you are like Waru. You can't really shut down his card draw, right?
Fenn would see more before turbo.
Fenn would, yeah.
I would say Fen is number 2.
A well built Waru probably in this meta right now. Like if you're talking about just the competitive end,
if any of your uniques have draw on them, Waru is definitely ahead of Izmir. But if you just talk about the standard of the only thing you're drawing is the 3 Eternities, the 3 Ozmas, then Izmir has you beat in almost all of their builds.
Well, I'd be interested to find what each hero has as far as card draw goes. I would bet you the top tier heroes, the quote unquote meta heroes, are drawing more than the non meta heroes.
I think that's almost universally true.
Yeah, I mean that's in our thing right here. Like that's yes, that is true with the exception of Tasia.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've seen as an argument, like, or at least a proposal as to why card draw isn't as important, because I think people have all come around at this point. Like in the very, very, very early days of sort of discussing altered structure, there was some talk about like, well, card draw is not that important because you get to play each of your cards twice. My argument for that has always been, it doesn't matter if I can play a card twice if that card is not the thing I need in this moment, right?
Yep.
Yes, being able to play a card twice if I have the answer is great because it means that I have that answer twice. So I'm not only taking care of the situation in the moment, but I'm putting myself aside something to deal with it in the future.
Well, and most of the answer cards, quote unquote,
they do. They're fleeting.
Are fleeting. Like, there are very few true answer cards that are.
But there are cases where they're not. Either way, you still got to see it, right?
Yes.
And it's not just that you need to see it; it's that you need to see it when you need it. And so we're compounding like the RNG equation to have the card you need when they get the card that you need to play it against. That's just card games. But in this game, like, if you aren't putting the things into your deck to draw through it and try to solve that equation in favor of your side of it, it gets a little ugly. It's pretty rough.
Yeah. Before I move on with this segment, I do want to give some deck construction advice. So, like, these are identified 3 standouts for efficiency and draw for all of the houses or factions. So Axiom, I have rare Ada Lovelace and rare Hooked. Those are super value as far as getting new cards in your hand. And Simply Play Traced is my 3rd card. Bravos, I've got rare Physical Training, rare Haven Bastion. We had a whole deck construction episode on Bravos about why I'm hard on those being great. And the 3rd one as well, Axiom Salvager, pairs perfectly with the Bastion. You get to see a brand new card from the resupply on the bottom. For Lyra, the out-of-faction Aloe Vera is one of, I think, the best drivers for the Lyra in general, specifically Fen. The common Hathor, that's another one of those, it's like quotation draw. While it's not actually giving you a new card, it does allow you to use a spell again, most commonly like Acapella or Twinkle or whatever. So that, and it could potentially land your Esmeralda with resupply again, which is a fresh card. And then just play Fen. Fen sees a ton of cards. Like there's no higher draw hero from scratch than Fen. You just get to draw basically a half a card every turn starting turn 2. That's a lot of cards. Fen's really good. Then we have I'm gonna skip a minute, we'll come back there. Ortis. You've got the common Ozma, fantastic card, draws 2 basically from one from play, one from reserve. The rare Attorney, only if you're playing Waru, ultimately can draw up to 4 cards. Generally draws you 2 per game per Attorney, which is huge. And then Ortis, no matter which version of Ortis you play, in the out of faction Baba Yaga is pretty good. Lots of Ortis decks run it. Not all Warus run it, but almost every Siggy runs it because they need the card draw real bad because they don't have the other draws that Ortis has. Well, they have Ozma, but they don't have the Attorney. It doesn't work for them. Izmir, I love the rare Cadogan Mage. It's really easy to pump that up, especially with the Faunus to get the draw there. Common or rare Baba Yaga, both great for draw. And then, of course, they have the common magical training, which is the most basic draw spell in the game. Pay a mana, draw a card. It's basically a 1 mana after you that gives you a card. And going back to Muna, I love rare aloe vera. It's a resupply. You can potentially get it a couple times if you have anchors in your deck that are more than just that card. And then anchors in general. That is literally where the draw ends with Muna. I do not like Daughter anymore. I do not like Kitsune. I felt every time I played, I was giving too big advantage to the decks in the game that are the best decks in the game. So I was just mana-ing Kitsune and Daughter all the time, which meant they just shouldn't be in my deck.
I think the problem that you have with Daughter is you were running common, right?
No, I was running the rare.
I feel like the rare is a card that can be good in a Tasia deck and in certain decks.
But my problem with the Daughter is that the stats are great. I love the stats on Daughter.
Yeah.
But the decks that I was struggling to beat with the most with Tasia, I was always having to mana them because I could not afford to give them a card. And if that's the scenario I'm in, it doesn't help me win the games I need to win.
Yeah. Do you have 3 rare Inari?
I do not have them in the deck. I have them. I don't use them.
We maybe we need to test some Inari with Anchor because that's draw at noon for rare and not terrible stats.
That could be a thing. I think that's one of those ones I looked at though. If I had the uniques that did that Anchor thing, my deck would change a lot because then I'd have a lot more access to Anchor.
Yeah, but the not good choices.
And then my third note from Muna is that's it. I only have the aloe vera card. Anchors help keep your guys out. And then Sad Day. That's it. I don't have any other cards to talk about that I love. And just a note from last week, make sure you have spindles to keep your anchor dudes alive. Because none of this stuff works, in my opinion, without Spindle right now. I think Muna, of all the factions, needs by far the most card support from set 2. And I know we've talked about that. They just need help.
Yeti's going to be a character that draws 3 cards and when it goes out.
I think Yeti is going to disappoint you by how vanilla it is.
Like with where Muna is right now, Yeti would have to say it's like a 6/6/6 that advances an expedition.
Yeah, I am concerned because the 2 cards that we have seen out of Muna are seemingly very big things, and I'm totally fine only having rare Hydra as my big
We
thing.
do have some spoilers, no? Ish.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah, there's 3 of them.
Might be time to talk spoilers here on one of our segments.
Well, we need to wait till we actually get enough to talk about. Right now, there is not anything good enough to talk about, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think we briefly touched on the cards that were made visible to us, and the only thing they've done so far, there's right now, Loki has kind of been teasing that we'll get to see some more information on either Amarok, which is a red wolf card that I'm very excited to see, or this green Yeti thing that I guess some people might care about. But we don't really know anything besides the fact that one's red, one's green, and their names.
Yep, nothing too exciting in the way of details. I can start collecting that though, so we can save it up and then have a whole conversation about it.
That's going to be a super exciting time on the cast whenever we get into
the new cards.
You call it like spoiler season from other games, and we can start sort of hypothesizing how they're going to impact the metas that we're in today.
And we'll have a little spoiler.
Did we ever send an email for whatever that was that they wanted in the altered server?
I have not heard back yet, but I will stay in touch. And Wookie, your mic is going robotic.
Oh. Interesting. Am I still going robotic?
It is.
A little bit, yeah.
That's weird. I don't know why. I've been having trouble now for 2 days. I know. I'll make sure I'm plugged in. It won't be going robotic on my end, because mine's directly in there. So.
Oh, easy enough to ignore for us then.
Yeah, I mean, it should be just fine on my end. God, I hope, for recording's sake. But
So we should say, listeners, if you are listening and
This
you
will
want to
get
hear your favorite Altered podcast, and that happens to be us talk about spoilers,
We're not their
Maybe,
favorite Altered podcast.
we could be.
Somebody with tits is their favorite Altered podcast. Let's be honest.
Well, we have the most hits out there so far, so we win.
There's a bunch of titties on this.
Is there?
Wow.
I don't want to be associated with any of this.
You don't want to be
segment,
associated
please.
with tits?
Listen,
No.
I do a lot of.
I mean, to each their own. Whatever's for you is for you.
I mean, 1, 2, 3. I mean, there's 12 of them.
Yeah, well,
Oy
I hate to
vey.
tell you, it's a certain variety. Not all tits are the same.
Hey, man bods are in, and we have a lot of them, I assume. Or dad
all
bods.
right. I'm
we
done
do
with my
have a
section.
bunch
I
of
think,
dad bods, so if you are a female Altered player, make sure you stay tuned
Other?
for the Altered Corner or other, whatever floats your boat. Make sure you stay tuned for the beginning of the year's coming. Maybe we make an Altered Corner calendar.
We got half the months.
There's 6 of us. We each get 2 months.
Oh, no.
So bad. So bad.
All right. The meta line.
Are we ready to go into meta
Yes,
lines
please,
with
God.
Zach? Zach, please, once again, for the 5th week in a row, why don't you tell me why Ortis is so good?
Not Ortis specifically.
What?
But, the title of my segment is Flattening the Curve, which is actually very unfortunate because we were just talking about titties and all that, but, whatever. So,
Hey, flat
Yes,
ones are
it's
fine,
full
big
circle.
ones are fine, lopsided ones are,
that's right. And curves are good
That
too.
was-
everybody
There went
is-
our last listener.
everybody
That's okay.
is
It's
beautiful.
okay. So, seriously, though, I am going to talk about flattening the curve. As we have played in this game, all of us and whomever is listening, if you've played any amount of games, your deck has gone through many, many, many different iterations. And the same can be said for the Warrior deck that I play. It started off with certain cards that, Z and I thought were good at the time that seemed to work out, whatever, etc. We had the Isatox in there, 6 cost. We had councils at 4 cost. Just a bunch of like higher cost cards. And as we played, and as you find out, they can be easy to remove. We've already talked about the 4+ cost removals, right? You spend a turn spending 6 mana for a card, and it gets burned with 1 card. You're kind of sitting there like, oh, what do I do now? So one of the things that we've talked about and has come up in a lot of other games is wanting to flatten your mana curve as much as possible. Right now, I'm looking at our Warroot deck, and as you can go to 39cards.com and see what the winning decks have put out there, you can see almost across the board, and I'm only speaking of Warroot, I'll speak on some of the other ones in just a moment, but across the board, you can see the mana curve getting lower and lower and lower. Clearly, what that's doing is giving more options for in the higher mana turns, right? So the fact that, you have, in our case, a Toth, right? 3 cost. You have Ozma at 2 cost. You have the Legates at 2 cost. You have the Attorneys at 2 cost. Quetz at 3. Frog Prince at 1. Ortis Trooper at 1. It gives you a lot of opportunities to let the tug of war during that round develop and see how your opponent is responding. And like Z has said before, and I think others on this cast, is to see, one, how your opponent reacts, and then to actually play your true turn that you want to play. It's harder to do that in the lower mana turns, but in the higher mana turns, once you start hitting 6, 7, 8, you can see a little bit more card play and see what develops. So one of the things, like I said, that we've done is we've lowered our mana cost. I'm currently looking at our deck. Hand cost, ranges from 1 to 4, reserve cost 1 to 5. And the reason why there's a reserve cost of 5 in there is because it is our unique Robin Hood that is currently being played. That is probably one of the higher ends, but even at the 4 cost, hand cost of 4, we only have 3 cards. At reserve cost of 2 or more, we have 3 cards. So the majority of the cards are sitting in that 2 to 3 range. And again, it gives you more options. For some of the other factions that other people may play, I don't know why.
Yeah.
Shots fired.
Some of us like having to think and not have our decks just pilot themselves.
Hold the phone now. There is a lot of decision points that I have to make when I play War Room.
We just
he has
hit
to decide
altered corner of Civil War, folks.
when you're gonna pay an extra one. You know, he has to decide what turn he's gonna win the game. He's gotta.
This is all true. This is all true.
He has to pick that token every turn. You gotta choose the side you're spawning your.
He's got carpal tunnel now, thanks to you.
You know, to sleep or not to sleep, to play Robin Hood, to not play Robin. Yes, you always play Robin Hood. But sincerely though, like you're looking at Bravos, right? Your mana curve isn't really that important. You're going to be playing higher cost cards. You're going to be playing those huge value cards. The same thing for Muna. We've talked about like there's some higher cost cards that you are going to want to play potentially depending on what
because on those low decks that we literally just talked about, like you can't actually afford to have a flat curve because you'll run out of cards. Like you will lose the game by burning through your deck if your whole deck is cheap. So you do need mid-range, like more 3s and 4s in your deck because you will run out of cards if you do not do that.
And as we were talking about the draw earlier, it was like such a nice like aligned segment with what I was going to talk about today. Izmir with the Ephanis, right? You're running a lot of low-cost spells, so you can just fire. And Stiggy is kind of, you're looking at low-cost cards, but there are some, the 3s or the 4s.
Stiggy's all over the place with what people come with.
Yeah. And then, if anybody wants to run that, what is it, the Izmir Bastion, 8 or 9 cost one? Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like I don't know what kind of mental person would run that.
Not many people run it. It's just the people that play Cole.
Again, it's in his settings of hard mode, easy mode, and how much he wants to suffer during the day.
Just you wait. It's coming for you. You wait.
I only play during this. I was gonna say I only play during Ace, so it's I only see this good index right there.
We have tracked 442 games. 28 of them are Akesha, and 5 of them that are tracked are against you.
Listen, we don't need to talk about my recent fall from anything good.
Yeah, your streak went so bad you stopped tracking data. We didn't. We would have a whole lot of weird wins on here, I guess.
I will just say that I have 2 decks on there, and one of them I played against Akesha 0 times. The other, a lot more than I should have, and Ephanis, a lot more than I should have. And all of those were during the very bad time.
You do have 10 of our 56 games versus Ephanis, so I'll agree with you there. You were running into Ephanis a lot more than the ratio would suggest you should have.
I believe that Trace would be another one that would also like to have that nice, just flattening mana curve. But again,
Trace wants everything to cost 1.
Right, and a lot of it's going to be from reserve too, right? So, again, you've seen this in a lot of other games. You're going to want to, you're looking at not even value, but you're looking at to keep a nice flat mana curve so that way you have options when you're playing, especially if you're drawing a lot of cards. If you're not drawing a lot of cards, right? It gives you options. So
I've won games on Trace where I've stopped manning at 6 and just I'm going to just draw 2 cards the rest of the game and play my entire hand the rest of the game. And it worked.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also I'm gonna die over here. Excuse me.
Oh no.
Don't do it.
There's also there's huge advantages right now to who fleshing out the turn. I guess we're calling it the tug of war, right? Like you want to see where your opponent's at and counting up mana orbs. It's a big deal, right? And then knowing what lines they're able to take with what's available to them to know what your next move should be. Does that make sense? Did I say that right?
Yeah, being able to, you need to be able to predict what their
information
outs are.
is so I feel like the hierarchy of needs in Altered is like card draw, then information. Right? The
Mhm.
active player is whoever is, first player is at quite a bit of a disadvantage, I feel, a lot of the time.
Unless you're a Kesha.
Unless you're a Kesha.
Yeah,
But,
well, in which case you're not really the first player. So
right. And I feel like just being able to sort out I've lost a ton of games because I don't have the card knowledge that Z does or any of you guys. Right? And obviously that comes with losing games.
Yep,
But,
I've lost a ton of games too.
Right. And
Yep.
you gotta lose the games to be like, oh, okay, and then you kind of constantly see the same thing, and eventually you learn or you flip a table. Like those are your two options, right? If you never
Maybe
learn,
both.
you're just like, why did I not see that coming? And but that information is so big, so I don't want to say foresaw it, but I was like, oh, there's going to be a flattening of this, right? You're going to kind of like 3-4, because Magic's very similar too, right? Like Magic, like you want to stay in that 3-4 range, right? And then maybe you have like some larger closers, right? In the end, maybe. Not all the time, like most times though.
Yeah, and it's like particularly it's so different if we're talking about sealed or if we're talking about constructed. In this case, we're talking about constructed, and yeah, like you play a big card, you give up so much flexibility to do that. Even if the big card is super splashy, you play that Kraken and constructed. Oh man, Kraken does so many cool things.
Yeah, because there's not as many answers in a limited environment as there is.
Yeah.
in a
It'll win you that
constructed
game in sealed.
Right.
Oh, it sealed it every
Absolutely.
time.
Limited's a whole nother animal in any card game you play.
Yeah.
Right? Because like you don't have access to all the perfect answers. Where in a constructed environment you do.
Sometimes you might not have an answer. Like you just have
Very
push.
much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and you could extend that argument a little bit to include the card draw thing we talked about before, right? Where if you're
card
not
draw is
drawing
just-
through your answers,
It's the facilitation of it, right? You're able to
Yeah,
find them now.
well, but there's all the time I play games where like my answer, I don't see it, right?
Yeah.
My shuffle's bad. I don't hit my draw cards to power through the deck, and I need a card that I just can't get to. But most of the time, if the difference between like people that are trying to make decks like Atsadi work with huge cost cards that they're going to ramp and then they're going to put like one big card a turn, it's just tough.
Well, because the reason why it's so bad specifically in this game is like, let's say I do play some gigantic creature with all my mana and I'm going to win both lanes no matter what they do. I obviously had to play that pretty early in that round, like first or second time I went to act, quite often the first time, which means even if my opponent can't win the lane, either lane, then they just hold all of their cards and then they kick my ass the next turn. Like it's a rough situation to play these big costing cards unless they're literally to close out the game. Because that just gives them cards.
All right. Are we ready to move into the marketplace search?
Yeah, you got to stay with you.
I
Do a
got
quick
you.
search?
I got you today.
What we got for retail?
Well, hold on. Let's play a game, right? Let's have a little fun with this. So, where do you guys think a booster box of the Kickstarter is at?
We've been holding it like
190.
149 for a long time now.
It was 152 last week.
Yeah,
I'm kind of keeping my eye on this. So
175 is my bet.
175, okay.
I'm going to stay at 155. I'm going to keep it near where it
155,
was.
okay.
Yeah, I'm going with what we've been at, 150. It's been 150.
150, okay. So my guess is that Gamers Guild is out. Because the top search comes up for Game Nerds and More at 169.97.
On the way up.
Yep.
Yeah, that's going up, and that's what I said last week. Is like that price, like 150 for a Kickstarter. Like, given the market rate of certain uniques and certain rares that are in Bravos Ortis, and Axiom, like you are almost guaranteed to open more than $150 in value by just cracking the 37 packs. If you wanted to do the work to sell them, I think that still holds true for what's the new price?
170 basically.
Yeah,
So
like we
$20 up.
literally just did
Who
a
had
faction
175?
break.
Me.
Wasn't me.
Good job.
Go Cole.
Go Cole.
Yeah.
So like we just did a faction break moments before that we started this cast today, and Ogre opened a card that's probably worth alone in the $150 to $200 range, and then the rest of us got a whole bunch of rares. Market value for every rare is roughly $2 right now, and then there's some that are like 10 to 20 because of meta. Like it is really hard to open randomly any Kickstarter box since they have more rares and more uniques. That is going to be under $250 worth of total value.
All right,
So-
and for just a standard box, where you guys think we're at? We were at 84 last week, I believe. It was like 84.99.
I don't see any reason for it to change for a while now. So whatever it was last week is my guess this week.
Unless the supply starts running low. I mean, that's the only reason why it would go up, right? I'm gonna go about 90 for retail.
Yeah, 89.99.
So
I cheated on this one. I
I'll
pulled
go
up
83.
the Gamers Guild site to verify the last thing we were looking at. So
yeah, what is Gamers Guild?
Ogre's-
I don't even see them
Ogre's
on
one
here
of the-
anymore. So
the first thing I'm going to say is that you were correct. They are out of stock on KS. So
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, if Gamers Guild's out of stock, I do think that next week we're going to see another spike in the Kickstarter.
right now, the cheapest I could find for Beyond the Gates, SimoGames.com and more, $79.99. So a little cheaper than last.
What?
dang.
That's
Cole,
really
isn't it?
really cheap. That
What about-
is
What about
that is
five?
less
last,
than an online retailer can buy it for.
I think I said 89. I thought it would go up a little.
You said that, man.
So
Yeah, GG still got it for 85. So
Yep, I was gonna say I still see them at 84 and change. So, yeah, pick them up. I guess while you can, especially for the Kickstarter edition.
The Kickstarter, yeah, that's still a great deal. Like I'm not one to do a lot of work to sell sequels in my current age, but if I were like younger and I wanted the secondary game of like play the market, because like that's kind of fun to some people. Like
They
you
only
would
have
make
24
money by
available right
opening
now.
product. 24, yeah,
Single
that might
games only
because
has
like
24
last
available.
week, Gamers Guild had what did we say? It was like in the 80s. And we were like, people should buy this because it's definitely worth more than that.
They had like
I say
80
the same thing.
They had like 82 of the Kickstarter version, I believe.
Yeah,
is
and
what we had.
if this one was like 26 of the at 170, I think if you were literally just trying to make money off of selling singles in Altered, you could buy all of those and make all of that money back plus probably 20% easily.
that sounds like my nightmare.
I don't want to do that. I am not going to do that. But if I'm sure there's someone out there, and then hey, maybe you pop whatever you were looking for, and then still make all your money back. Who knows?
I'm actually eyeballing this.
Either way, you'll have lots of fun opening the packs.
I'm eyeballing this All the Heroes collection on eBay for $17. I might just pull the trigger.
What? No. We
Yeah.
could just send you heroes with decks.
Just
Well, these
every
are-
week, do
these
a
are-
faction break with
these are
us and
foils,
choose
are
a
they
different
not?
faction each week. Yeah, they are.
I promise you, we have so many
Wookie, I can
foils
give you
laying
all the
around.
heroes. I do
Yeah.
not care.
Oh no,
good, man.
just Wookie, just do a fact. You'll get like 6 of them per faction break or whatever.
Well,
Just do a faction break every week and choose a different hero.
Are they
or
not? These are
faction.
foil that came in the Kickstarter, no?
Yeah,
all
In the
yeah.
Kickstarter ones.
Yeah.
and that's
We
what
have
I'm saying.
so
The
many.
Kickstarter or foil.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
we will
well,
we will
and
get
every-
you characters.
We just opened 37 foiled heroes just now.
Oh, really? There's a foil hero on each pack?
In
Yeah.
every pack.
Oh,
except,
okay.
That's-
I didn't
that's
know
why
that.
the
I didn't know that.
oh, except for the gold packs. There
That's
is
why
not
the
a foil hero in
Kickstarters
there.
are so much more valuable. There's a lot of value baked in.
I did not realize all the heroes. I thought they came as like a separate side piece. I didn't realize they were in the boxes.
Mm-mm. No, don't. PSA to all the people that might be listening: do not let the I've seen it. Some of them are pretty fair. Like I would say, a full hero set for $15 in foil if you care about shiny, probably that's worth it. But like, do not fall for the other big crazy number sales for them. Like, somebody in your community has way more foiled heroes than they know what to do with. And if you ask them nicely, I almost can guarantee you they will give you the hero that you care about in foil, if not all of them. I hand mine out all the time.
True.
There's a lot. Yeah, we have a lot of them.
right.
If you want a set for $15, you could also just DM me out.
I was
This guy.
going to say the same thing. If Dexter's on his way up to KFC, I will send him a full set. You just send us $15, Wookie. We'll make it happen.
Oh my god, just
You
give
know,
Wookie
for
the
you,
card.
for
Be
you,
nice.
for you, Wookie, I'll do 20. Okay.
Oh, geez, what a here's that asshole coming out again. I don't
I've learned
know if
from
you
Zeke.
realize you just added $5 or just like the asshole automatically triggered in, and you were
It's
like, yeah.
25 now.
Oh, okay, cool.
I'll give you 2 of each for 15. How about that?
Oh,
Jesus, we got you, Wookie.
they're trying to take me over the coals. All right, where are we? Events. We got events with Cole. What do we got?
All right, so I think the way we do this is we start with just listing out some events to have on your radar, and then we'll save the best for last, which is our own Ace tournament. I will say, if you have not gone over to alteredcorner.com yet, do that. I just put the tournament results page live on the website, but we'll dive into that in a moment. As for other events, as always, join the Altered Corner Discord for your locals in DFW, Houston, San Antonio, and Austin. We keep track of anything and everything we can in the pins of each metro. There's not anything too new cropping up from what I've seen, so it's just your usuals we've already mentioned. However, Aegis does do a different type event each week, and I believe this week's is sealed, right?
Yes, it is. And again, we thank them for sponsoring our Ace events.
We love you, Julio.
And we're gonna get it sorted out if it's Aegis or Aegis or whatever.
We
it
need
is.
to ask them tomorrow.
Ask yet?
Ask him
Well,
tomorrow.
I wasn't there last week. So
we didn't talk about.
It's
No,
gonna
we talked
come
about
out
that
to
on
something.
Sunday.
It's gonna be like, oh, it's pronounced Philippe. Like, what the fuck?
I think just based on where we are, it's probably Aegis, but I apologize if we've been wrong, Julio. Yeah, if you're in Houston and you want a different event each week or just go to a cool shop and play with some of the people in the community, definitely check Aegis Creative Company out.
Every Saturday.
And then, yes, sorry, every Saturday. It's just so much easier to join the Discord. But now, also the website has all the events if you are not a Discord user. So,
Excellent.
other than local to Texas and local events, we had AWOL on Wednesday. Simon had a work event, so I actually was the main admin in charge of AWOL. I literally went AWOL because Simon forgot to give me privileges to ping at rolls. And so I just started screaming in the Discord a bunch.
I was wondering why you were talking in all caps, and I enjoyed it. And I was like, man, he must be just like something's going on.
That was just my energy. I also think that people shouldn't need pings for every round, and they should just pay attention. But you know, I had fun with it. We saw kind of an upset in the AWOL last week. So AWOL is an online tournament. It's on Wednesday nights. It is a Swiss, so we usually play about 6 rounds as of now. And the upset wasn't that someone other than Waru won. The upset was the player was different, and it was Chaos who was piloting a friend's deck who has chased down some very disgusting uniques. So the real winner of the night was a couple really gross Robin Hood uniques and a Sandman unique that also had a Robin Hood effect on it built in.
Oh.
So yeah, there was some triple taxing going on there. Waru in first place and Trace in second place on at AWOL this week. And then for events that are not us in France, there's going to be another big Ludo Trotter tournament. I just want to mention real quick what you get for this tournament ticket, and I am extremely jealous. So for 35 funny money, you get 3 retail boosters in English, 2 retail boosters in French, 1 promo booster, 5 VOT vouchers, whatever that is, entry into the event, which is TCG Kingdom, and 1 playmat. And then you get to play in the tournament.
For 35 euros?
That is incredible.
$35?
Yeah.
Even without the playmat, that's a great deal.
Do you have to
Yeah,
touch somebody through a hole or something? Or holy,
unless
$35?
Well,
Yeah.
35 euro, right?
It's euros, so it's like $40.
Even
Yeah.
then, $40?
Yeah,
Jeez.
and there's also prizing for top 128. So, yeah,
Wait,
it's great.
I want Wookie to hear what you just said real clear.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
many people get pricing?
Pricing for top 128. I'm aware. Yes, I know.
Man, what kind of card event would even have 128 players? My goodness.
There's a certain game someone told me recently wasn't dead. I don't even think they have 128 players.
We have more than
We're gonna
100.
have like 150.
That's your world event. That's your entire host of players.
At our Worlds event right now.
Are the top
Listen,
128
this is just
going to
where
get a
Worlds
prize?
is held. Listen, this is just where Worlds is held. This is a complete celebration of the card game, okay? So why don't you go ahead and sit down on your high horse over there in Texas, okay?
I hate to tell Wookie, but the prizing is for top 128, but I believe the cap is either 256 or 512.
It is 256, I think.
What, they're going by hard drive sizes now? What the hell?
I am
even eights.
translating a website from French to English, but I don't think the ticket information could be wrong. I think it really is just that good of a deal.
Are you sure it wasn't like
And-
400?
It's
No,
35.
It's 35
right
euro.
here.
Yeah, I'm looking at it too. They're pricing. Like, yes, he said the pricing starts at the top 128, but the pricing for the top player.
Tell me about
is-
top 16. Give me the top 16 breakdown, Zach. What are we getting here? Let's say I go and kill it, and I make it a top 16.
Top
What do they got for me?
16, you got 24 retail boosters, it believes it's in English, and 2 promo boosters. If you take the entire thing, you get 2 English retail displays, you get 1 French retail display, 1 display Kickstarter France, 4 booster promos, 50 euro card market vouchers, and a guest invitation to 2025. That is a
That's
fucking
like
prize.
$700 worth.
Can you
That's
dump this
incredible.
link to me, please?
Oh, I will absolutely. Yes, I will put it.
No,
into
I need
our...
this for a certain person on another one of my shows who's like, hey, it's not
There
the
you go.
same. It's just not the same. And it's like, but it fucking is, you dumb. It's
Now,
it's
on top
exactly
of
the
that-
same. This
On top of that,
team.
they have
My
side
God,
events.
no, hold on. I ain't done bitching yet. Listen here.
Okay, go.
Listen
Go on.
here, fucking
This is the best.
Ghost Galaxy and your bullshit event, all right? This is what a tiny company can do. They have like 7 people, and they're French. So that's really like 3.5 people, right? And these guys, well, whatever, it's 7 people. I'm just fucking around because I'm American.
I do not sign on to these
I'm
statements.
just fucking around because I'm American. But literally fucking 7 people. 7 people and a baguette are fucking fueling this company. And this company able to somehow figure it the fuck out. Get off your
I mean,
asses, do some fucking work, get a better game designer, because the one you have sucks balls.
Oh God!
It's okay, they're not going to listen to this. It's Altered Card.
I mean,
Altered, what's that? It wouldn't be a competitive card game that's actively taking market share away from us, is it?
Oh god.
And
Are you,
players.
okay,
And
Wookie,
players.
because there's still more.
I don't want to hear the rest. Go ahead. You might
I
as
do.
well.
Tell-
There are actual, factual, prize-supported side events
Because of course
going
there are. Why
Saturday
wouldn't
and
there
Sunday.
be?
Win a box in French retail box. There's another registration for that. Win a box Kickstarter edition. There's a registration for that. Draft in and sealed package in.
Wow.
4 different events that are
Their side
literally
events will probably be better attended than Worlds.
well, they are limited to
What are
32
flights to
participants.
France costing?
$5.
$5.
Oh.
Airfare's
No,
been pretty
not
bad
what are the
recently,
side
so-
events costing? What's a flight? I'm gonna.
Well, no, I was gonna say the registration for these side events. There's 22 euros, 25 euros. Like
Yeah. So,
it's-
like, when is this event going down? I gotta book my tickets. Hey, Amanda,
Marvel?
you want to go to France? Okay.
tomorrow you're gonna have to fly right now. Like go to the airport.
Oh, is it like this weekend or something?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rough
Oh, you-
estimate. You,
like, you have
could
to
get a
be on the
nonstop to
plane
Paris
right
for
now.
$700.
That's actually not
I
terrible.
mean, it
That's
sounds
not
like
bad.
just signing up for $40. I'm still probably getting close to my money's worth.
So this time next year, we film an episode of Altered Corner Goes to France.
Yeah, why not?
Sounds fine. Because
Hell
by
yeah.
then we're gonna have 300 Patreons, and
Yeah.
we'll be
That's-
able
By
to buy
by then, I mean, I'll take my wife. It'll make her happy, right? She gets a
Hey,
trip to
mine
France.
too.
Yep.
Right?
And I get
What
to
woman?
visit
What
the,
woman
the
right
home
now?
of my
What
people.
partner right now is going to be like, oh, I don't want to go to France. No, never.
Well,
This-
I apologize for just listing out
Yeah.
this incredible deal, and
I need to correct myself. The event is in. Is it Lyon? Is that how you say it?
Leon.
that is a good point. I don't know where
If it's
one is.
there, it's like an additional $500 over flying into France. So,
It's
or
at,
into Paris, excuse me.
Well,
So,
yeah,
France is
Parc
very
Expo.
small, so
Paris Nord Ville Pinte. It's
Or-
it's part of the Le Royaume du TCG, which is the Kingdom of TCG, and it's I guess Europe's largest TCG event.
nice. Well, we could probably find like a small country not far from there to fly into for dirt cheap and then just like catch a train, right?
Yeah, it's 15 minutes from the Paris Charles de Gaulle airport. Charles de Gaulle.
God, they don't even have some
Anyways.
shitty alternate set they're giving away. It's just like, here's product to the game you're playing right now that doesn't suck.
It is a good sign for things to come. I
Yeah.
am stoked for
It'd
next
be great
year.
if we
So-
could have things like
so-
this over US side. If
to
anybody,
be
is
more clear on
listening.
their count though, 'cause, so they originally had it at 256. They raised it to 512 because
Yeah,
they
it's-
needed to.
Well,
Wookie.
they- because-
that's what
Because
happened
they have
with the
so
first
many
one,
people
right?
wanting to play.
No, the
Yeah.
first one they had at 128, and then they had to go up to 1024.
1012.
Yeah.
Or
Like
50,
every time they set a limit on this thing, they
it sells
get
out, and
pressed
they're
on
like,
it.
But like, this is
Can we
also
have more?
overseas too, right? Like, nothing against it, right? Like, I mean, the overseas community, especially for this game, is massive.
Yeah.
I, you guys are blessed down by you to have a community. I literally, like I said, you guys have seen what's running in my area. Now, Wisconsin kind of just sucks as a whole because, you know, like if it ain't Magic, nobody cares. You
Yeah.
know, so like any game, like
that's a lot of areas though. Actually,
it is a lot of areas, but even like card games that are doing well, like One Piece and trying to think the Lorcana, like all these card games that are doing well, right? Like they don't even get like local attention either. So
Well, yeah, in fairness, we really struggled in Houston. Like if it wasn't for Julio kind of deciding that he was going to step up for us,
yeah,
we weren't able to get any traction anywhere. And
yeah.
you know, we're still like we're small. We're not a big community. There's not that many of us that show up to the weeklies. I hope that it gets that way. And I hope that just
to be
in
honest
the U.S.
with
in
you,
general.
you guys run them really early. Just saying.
Well, we're all old people.
I understand we're all old.
The Houston ones are early, but the rest are usually weekdays.
I am the same
around
age
6 or
as you
7.
guys, and I don't know.
You're the same
Yeah.
age as me, Wookie?
Not you. You're
I-
an
No,
you are an
no,
anomaly.
no.
Same age as you.
As the cast nomad, if they weren't early, I would really struggle because even when we finish if I want to sit around and visit and kind of chat for a little bit, maybe get a couple of trades in, I'm still not making it home until 6:30, 7:30. That
Well, I was
drive,
saying
man.
I was saying for the online ones, not the in-person ones.
Oh, yeah, I guess the online.
I was considering changing the start time to like 6:30 for season 2, but we're
There
about to
is a
start
lot of
talking about that.
European
I'm
players
looking
that
at like
play too,
8
though, and that
o'clock.
hurts them.
I am not worried about that.
Yeah, there's already enough people complaining about that in AWOL, and it's already another tangent I don't want to get on.
Yeah,
but
there's plenty of people to play in Europe that can host European
Yeah.
timed events, right? Like
Yeah.
that's not we're not.
we
curtailed for
love
that.
having all of you, but if we're hosting it for free entry on our time, we
with prizes. You
live
just
in
want-
our time zone. It's just it is what it is. But for anything somewhat close to that French tournament, Altered will be at PAX Unplugged. I'm sure we'll talk about it a little more in depth on a future episode.
Yeah,
But here is your warning now. There will be like booster drafts. There will be constructed events. There will be ways to get and keep product. So if you're not considering going to PAX Unplugged, maybe think about it now
When
and
is PAX
we'll
Unplugged?
get further into it.
End of November?
PAX Unplugged, yep.
When?
December 6th through the 8th.
Have you any of you guys ever gone to Unplugged?
Well,
Yeah.
I've never been to
used
any.
to be in October, didn't it?
no, it was always been in December as far as I know.
Or maybe it was just
I went
PAX in
to-
general.
They had a Keyforge event.
I know,
back
but it
in
wasn't in
2009.
December, was it? Was it
It was
in
in
December?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I could just be wrong. It's been a while.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll be there. Altered will be there.
All right.
$91 for a 3-day badge, plus however much it costs to get to
It's not
Pennsylvania.
bad.
I'm assuming it's
Gen
not
Con
cheap
was-
because airfare.
Yep. Gen Con was 170
my ticket to not have an extremely shitty flight, I think I paid a total of $160.
What?
Yeah.
That's a pretty cheap flight.
How in the heck did you arrange that?
Yeah, that seems like a really cheap flight. Up to Pennsylvania?
Are you in the cargo bay?
I have known I was going for a bit, and I don't have like checked bags or anything. And I don't know. I have flights out of Dallas are always really well priced. My ticket to go to Gen Con was like 120.
Oh wow.
I don't understand
that
that
is
because
cheap.
flying out of Houston is never
300
ever
always.
that cheap.
Yeah, that's
It's like
why
300 for anywhere.
Yep.
companies really need to stop sleeping on DFW as an area to not only hold events but also hire people from there because it's a very good travel hub. Like I don't have many issues getting most places.
Yeah, it don't sound like it. Sounds like you do just fine. All right.
yeah,
but we're
good.
not done.
Nope.
So
Ace, baby.
all right. So yeah, we have our championship event queued up. So Tuesday, the day you're listening to this, if you're freshly listening to it, we are preparing for that 6 p.m. It's not open public. We had 16 people qualify throughout the season, and I have their names. This is actually like their rank as far as entering our championship tournament. Our first seed is Pluka. Second seed is myself. Third seed, we got the Keylon guy. Fourth seed, we got Belteshazzar, or he has another name in Discord. It's like
Not a piece of meat.
or something.
Yeah.
Fifth, we've got one of our Euro people, I think, Sylvain. And then sixth, we've got Zared. 7th, one of Cole's locals, Elio. 8th, we've got Sabrant. I think he's also Europe. 9th, we've got Maddox. 10th place, we've got Noble Zach. Good job. And then right next to him, 11th, we've got Ogre. You made it, bro. And then back to back 12th, we have got Dexter, who squeezed in there as well. And then our last 4 slots are closing us out are Evron, Aklo, Boston Beaver, which is another Houston local, and ECO. That is our top 16. So congratulations to everyone who made it. It's going to be.
I didn't know Boston Beaver was a Houston local. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
He has never come to the store. I expected him to be more active, but I haven't seen him actually show up to anything yet.
He has 2 kids. He says he's always busy. Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Keelan guy is in Switzerland, by the way.
Okay.
Yep. So
Didn't know
finishes at like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. So if
you're
dedicated,
they all confirmed they're playing in this. It is going to be more along the time frame of like what AWOL runs, like roughly like 4 to 5-ish hours to finish it because it is best of 3. So we're going to see how that works. If it does end up being a little clunky or long, we might switch back to best of 1 for our next season championship. But we're going to try out the best of 3 because that's something that has been talked about in different places quite a bit as far as like the higher level events being best of 3 things when it comes down to the finals. So I guess we'll get to see how that works on Tuesday. But yeah, we have got lots of people qualified, and then I believe you, Cole and Zach, took some data on this. So talk to us about what we saw over the season.
Yeah, Zach did most of the work, but as I mentioned earlier, it is up on the website to see the top 8 hero breakdown for each 4 weeks of play, and then just some general information. I'm also going to put who the season 1 champ is and what their deck list was. If you want more expansive deck lists for more placements, as we've mentioned before, Tom does 39cards.com, so go over there. Real quick, though, for Season 2's teaser, I did the judging of time. Season 2 should start first week of December. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think we're aiming at the 3rd of December as our start, but we've got some time between now and then. So before we close out the cast, and then we keep forgetting about this, Aegis has sponsored our Ace Championship. I know we mentioned it a couple times, but he donated a whole retail box that is helping the pricing. There was no fee for to enter this tournament. So many of our top contenders, actually, if they make it out of round 1, everyone that makes at least top 8 is going to get some degree of booster pack pricing. So thank you again for Aegis supporting not only our local community in Houston, but our online community here.
We love you, Julio.
Yeah, great guy. Yeah. If you don't do anything else, if you come to Houston, go by, say hi to Julio, even if we're not running a game. Aegis Creative Company. Very, very good person.
I'm going to extend the shout out to Julio just a little bit. This past weekend, I got an opportunity to get back out to Houston. I am the nomad, so I don't get to go every week. And we didn't get a big turnout, but a couple of diehard friends shaped like Zach and Dexter did make it out to hang out with me. And Julio also made his inaugural run with us and took a win off of Waru. First day he'd ever played into a Waru, first of all. Second, with Subash.
Funny.
It was awesome. It was so cool to see. And I think it deserves the shout out.
That is a very ogre style shout out. As for data, I mean, I really think the meta is shifting. Unfortunately, it's very, very slow. So
it's only shifting to you.
No, I'm saying like looking generally over. If we take every tournament online and in person, and we kind of look at it, it is shifting just very slowly. Like even in Ace, I mean, we had the traced or not Ace in AWOL. there was Waru and Traced instead
At
of
the top.
Waru and Waru and Waru.
Well, actually, our last 2 weeks in Ace, right? Like 2 weeks ago,
Kojo.
Kojo won over Waru. And then last week, the finals was Waru versus Kojo. Waru won, but still, Kojo had, like, most likely had to beat some Waru to get there. And that is top spot. Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's exciting for me to look at AWOL last week, and who knows what it's. I don't actually think it's because Waru's getting any worse. I think it's just because people are getting a little bit tired of either playing the same thing or playing into the same thing, maybe, and so we're
Yeah.
seeing them experiment a little bit. But I only see 2 Warus in the top 21 on 39cards.com. That's not bad. Like, there's some actual variety here.
Yeah, so I mean, looking at our tournament, it is slow, but I would say compared to that very first 2 tournaments we saw, the Gamers Guild Arizona and then the first Ludo Trotter, there's a lot less Siggy and there's more Kojo. Fan has stayed consistent, but I think as time goes on, people are just learning more and experimenting more. And there was another event that you can see on 39cards.com as well that I think it's the Exalted Celebration. It has a lot of Waru, but it's still a little different. But yeah, things are changing slowly. Was there anything that stood out to you while you were hammering this data in, Zach?
I mean, like you said, like looking at like the top 8 heroes over the 4 weeks that we've run Ace, we have out of the 32 top 8 heroes, we have Waru at 10, Fen at 6, and Kojo at 5, and those are like the biggest ones, right? There's some interspersings of some other ones for top 8, but that's what it has been feeling like as far as, you know, that follows what we've seen, that follows what we talked about. It, you know, it is what it is, and it is very interesting to see for sure. It is good. I like it.
All right, is that going to do us for events this week?
Yeah, I think that wraps us
I'll take
up.
that as that's going to wrap it up for this week. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for listening in the live chat. For all those of you who popped in, and we'll see y'all next week.